Okay, I want to introduce myself. I'm Ricardo Paris. I'm talking from Brazil. On behalf of the Spring Alumni Network, I want to thank you all for being here. It's really very nice that you see so many people interested to discuss and to share ideas, yeah, for a better future in such a difficult times that we are living. Today we will discuss one of the most important, in my perspective, topics for the ones that really want to look ahead for solutions. And to see the importance and how appealing is this topic, we were the first overbooked group of our workshop. So it's really, it has a lot of interest on that. We see a lot of people interested on this topic. So the topic is circular economy, and it's a topic that's really only works if we see like with this holistical perspective, academia, private sector, community, as we see in our discussion. I want to remind you all to turn off the microphones and turn on the camera if it's possible, if the internet connection allow it, so we see each other. It's nicer. And we will be recording this session, and later on we will open to the public in our website, so we can also, you can also follow up the presentation later on. As this is a workshop, I'd like to invite everyone to join the discussion, to bring ideas, experiences, use the chat to discuss, to put your questions. And for that, I will open the floor to our moderator, Maya Cale. She's an advisor for digitalization and sustainability at the Nordic Council of Ministers Office in Latvia. A little bit about her. Maya sees sustainability not only as a theoretical concept, but also something that reflects our everyday dilemmas and choices. She has a degree in business and her background in international development. She has always worked in that dynamic and challenging space between the public, corporate, and the civil sector. Since 2016, Maya Cale has been working as an advisor for sustainability and digitalization at the Nordic Council of Ministers Office in Latvia. Her areas of responsibility include topics such as smart cities, energy security, 5G cooperation, food value chains, bioeconomy and circular economy, our topic today, and gender balance in tech and energy sectors. So I will open the floor to Maya, and again, welcome you all for this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricardo, and I'm very happy to join you today from Riga. It's 6 p.m., so it's evening of Saturday. And before we go further, I'm also very happy to see that some of the participants have already entered their answers in Slido. And if you see in this chat, you can see that if you open www.sli.do and you enter the code 3939, then during this presentation session, you will be able to answer some open-end questions or multiple choice questions. So I welcome to check the Slido now and then. I'm also not only advisor at the Nordic Council of Ministers Office in Latvia, but I'm also a very happy graduate of masters in Germany, and I'm DA alumni, and also have been working for Alumni Portal Deutschland, so very many friends around here. But circular economy is one of the topics I have been working the most during last years, and I think it's the most crucial topic when we think in what kind of crisis situation we are right now there. And therefore, I'm very happy to be part of this session, which focuses on circular economy as the way to combat poverty. And having been talking to Franz Beckers, who will present today the topic, I'm quite sure that all of you will feel the same as me, that this is something extremely exciting, and this is something you want to dig deeper to understand better. And this is so much about future and our activities and actions that we can do in future. And Franz Beckers has more than 20 years experience with circular economy. And that's very special because in a way, circular economy is a new topic, but, or it's becoming increasingly frequent topic. Therefore, it's very interesting to talk to Franz, who has this also kind of overview of how this field has evolved. And particular focus of Franz is on raw materials. And I think that's an extremely good starting point to start when you look at the circular economy. So I will give floor to Franz Beckers for a 15 minutes keynote. But meanwhile, I invite you to ask your questions in chat. After the keynote, we will also have a 5 minutes question and answer session. So don't worry, you will be also able to ask, but you can also write your question. In Latvia, people usually don't like to ask, they prefer to write. So it just in case you prefer to write, you can do so. And so let's start with the presentation, and then after that we will have question and answer sessions. And I will one more time post the information how you can access the Slido so that you can answer the questions that are posed there. Thanks. Franz, floor is yours.
Thank you, Maya. Well, very nice to be invited, and honored to share your conference. When I was asked to lay a connection between the topic of poverty and circular economy, I was so stubborn also to add SDG number 12. That's the SDG the most times we use on raw materials. And let's see today if we could find a combination how circular economy could combat this poverty, especially in these days. So I've made a little bit of an agenda introduction of all of us. Some background on circular economy, why, how, and what. We only have 15 minutes, and normally we use a couple of hours for this, of course. But I'll make sure that we have some kind of a mutual layer, mutual common ground on circular economy. And then I try to zoom in on the connection between the circular economy and the Sustainable Development Goals, and then especially number one. As Maya already said, my perspective is foremost a raw material perspective. I live in Europe, and Europe is the only continent in the world that has hardly any fossil raw materials left. So also from an economic point of view, we should make the switch from what we call fossil mining to urban mining. And to be able to do this urban mining, you have to start with to design circular products. At the right, you see this model, a circular model, in which you see product design, reverse logistics, refurbishment and recycling, and at the end the materials bank. To make sure that once you have organized a circular system, that all aspects are in place. I think there is a connection between the circular economy and the informal economy, which still is important in a lot of other countries. And as we discussed in the preparation, so many people on this globe, and let's see how we can at the same time make sure that there's enough available raw materials also for food. At the same time, we are able to have a proper land or spatial planning. And I'm really looking forward towards the discussion. Well, a short introduction on myself, but you will get the slides afterwards, so you can read it. So to stick into this 15 minutes. Franz Beckers, more than 20 years active indeed in the circular economy. My background is in several sectors, in logistics, in the chemical sector, in the health sector. really long period in waste management and recycling, and from that all these experiences went together in the last 20 years circular economy. We do 3 kinds of activities. We help companies to develop circular strategies, concepts, and really actual products. At the same time, we try to execute the operational implementation that has to be connected. And as we say, it makes no sense to develop circular products if you don't have also IT systems behind. We have developed some IT applications to identify circular products and to track and trace them in a supply cycle, and to make sure that they will be recognized after a use stage, what we call end of use. So to be able to have a proper, or on one hand, extended use ending into recycling, and make sure that these raw materials are suitable for new applications again. Well, the rest you can read once you. Some background on this circular economy. This is a slide with a lot of information, and I try to get you to help you to get through it. Well, from my perspective, as I told, the resources are becoming scarce, especially for Europe. Other continents, that's not the case yet, but it will take place as well. And at the same time, we see all over the globe that agricultural land becomes scarce and exhausted. We are very good in getting the highest crop per square acre. At the same time, we know the topsoil is being exhausted, and that's not good for our future agriculture. Many countries do not enjoy their own raw material sources, and they are still exploited by other countries. And what we see, especially in let's say in our countries, that the current sustainability initiatives only lead to a reduction of energy and resource consumption. That's what we call sustainability 1.0. That's the first step, that only has to do with reduction. And we think you should go into the next stage, where you try to recuperate raw materials without loss of quality and without toxic effects. And that's what we call then from take, make, and waste, make the switch to urban mining. And some theoretical background on circular economy, people think in bio and techno cycles. So to make sure that these are not get contaminated, that's the best way to also to recuperate raw materials. Little definition. A lot of people think that circular products become the same products again after the use stage, and we say that's not necessarily. If that's possible, well, that's very good. But please make that choice. That's the best from a value and a quality perspective. Yeah, it's something it doesn't have to be done from, let's say, from Friday to Monday. Please think in transition and cascades. And we try to make this transition from passive to active recycling. A little bit of explanation on that. All the recycling that's being done today, that's what we call passive recycling. We try to do the best of it, to make the best out of it afterwards, after a product has been used. And we try to make the shift to active recycling, that we already know in the design stage what will happen with the product, all the components, all the raw materials in the product after it has been used. And then we can make this change from a footprint reduction to a positive footprint. Well, we try to approach that not from a threat perspective, but from an opportunity perspective for several sectors. And as I already explained, it starts with design, intelligent management system, and control of resources and raw materials. At the left side, you see some pictures of organizations that are also in circular economy. Last year, December, the European Union came up with the European Green Deal, in which circular economy was an important part. And last April, the European community came up with the Circular Economy Action Plan. So real action plan on several sectors where this should be established. At the same time, we know that we try to connect to sustainable development goals to make sure that also the global level, independent global level, we are able to contribute to these goals. And maybe already saw that also the World Economic Forum spends a lot of attention to this topic of circular economy. So as I said, I focus at raw material scarcity because I think the contribution to raw material scarcity and reduction enables reduction of CO2 emissions and energy consumption by itself. And if someone doesn't agree, I'm looking forward to the discussion. So another little bit on the why of the circular economy. What we see with companies we work with, most of the times we work with companies, not so many times with government bodies, that in some sectors, let's say the automotive sector or the electronic sector, then resource availability is already a topic. For the rare earth metals, for example, and then you see that there is a real necessity to start with this phenomenon. In the mid, you see that there are already companies that say, okay, I see the value of stepping in this circular economy and to create product value or to create proposition value or to increase the enterprise value, or, and some of them also interested in creating a higher value for society. And at the same time, and that's at the right side, I must say that most of my customers are they get into motion when compliance tells them to move. And from a risk mitigation point of view, from a reputation point of view, or because the European Union is putting pressure on companies to come up with circular products and concepts, and if they can contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals in that way, well, that's nice. And at the same time, I think that has nothing to do with only circular economy. That counts for all of us. Let's say 20% of the people are more innovation driven, and most of us are compliance driven. So we try to serve both groups. Yeah. As I explained, what we do, we develop circular products, concepts, and put them in a proposition. At the same time, we try to make this tangible, also in concrete KPIs that can be connected to the Sustainable Development Goals. We do that in our dashboard, and so we develop a circular product. We put what we call a C passport, so a material passport to this product. And then we calculate the positive impact of the circular product compared to either waste or a non-circular product, and we project these KPIs on some of some selected sustainable development goals. This is an example of safety shoes. We did a large project in safety shoes, and in the preparation we were discussing, is this only working on a company level or should it also work on a sector level? And this is a typical example of where we started at a company level 5 years ago, market leader in the Benelux on safety shoes. And last year we started at a sector level where competitors joined together to make sure that the reverse logistics and the dismantling and recuperation of raw materials from these shoes has enough scale to come to a viable also an economic model. That's always a question on at what scale should one act to get impact. I think, and we could go to discussion on this as well, that at all levels there should be solutions. So this started at a company level and is now at a sector level. Another example is an example we did in the building sector. We developed a circular supermarket, and not only the building itself, but all the total inventory, from the cooling equipment to the how you call it, the shopping carts, to the butcher equipment, to the ceiling, whatever. More than 7,000 articles in the inventory of a supermarket site. And together with this company, we projected the impact on these 4 Sustainable Development Goals. And one of them is also number 17, where we say working together and creating community is very important. At the right side, you see what we did, that we made a materials passport of all the components and products in this supermarket. At the same time, we counted together to have a total material passport of the supermarket as a whole, be saying this supermarket facility is a future materials bank. Yeah. And with this, we demonstrate that you can do it for one shop, but you can do it also for all the shops in the country, all shops working together on an even bigger level. So that's what concerning some background. And then the discussion how could circular economy combat poverty? As I said, my approach is a sheer economic approach, and I said, okay, if you develop circular products by itself, you should use renewable energy, and by itself, you should make sure that the environment gets out better than less worse. Right? But at the same time, I'm wondering how can we, from a European perspective, very sorry, that's my perspective for the moment. How can we connect to other continents that have much more raw materials than Europe, where Europe should recuperate its own raw materials, but at the same time that you make sure that other continents like Africa can own their own raw materials, and that these raw materials don't go to other continents where they don't have any value or profit from that. So are other countries also able to create their own circular economy, and that improves prosperity for a lot of communities? Well, and what could be a way to approach that? As I more often say, 100 years ago, all economies were circular and regional by itself because logistics was too expensive, and so everybody tried to make products or buildings or whatever with raw materials that were available in the direct surroundings. What we see is that in the circular economy approach, that people try to develop regional economies. I think that's good. I think that's good. At the same time, we see for some materials, for some products, you need scale to have a viable economic model. But at the same time, we also see examples of that informal economies are included in circular regional economies, and that you are able to connect both local and global initiatives. For example, what we see in paper industry, the paper industry is a global market, and there are paper mills that are trying to use recycled paper fibers from paper in their own mills, and often they see that because it's a global market, they cannot source these products in their own region, and then you have to start very locally to make sure that all the paper that is used in a certain region is suitable on one hand and can be used for your own paper mill. We are now in another example is that we are in a project with textiles, where we said it would be nice to use textile fibers to produce automotive textiles. From a content point of view and a technical point of view, that's almost impossible, because you have non-defined end-of-use materials, and you should make new products out of it that with the highest requirements. We managed to do so. We were able to identify specific sources, regional sources that represent quality and represent enough volume to make automotive textiles from recovered old textiles. At the same time, we say this is a first step. It will work even better when all the textile manufacturers will start with circular production. And at this very moment, I must say that is still disappointing. Some of them are starting, but let's say that's a little percentage of the total volume of textiles that is in the global market. If we would like to combat poverty, people should have access to raw materials for their own economies. And that's not the case at this very moment. I think, and maybe we could have some discussion on that, the circular economy can help with that. If you organize things in a regional sense, and at the same time include also small-sized enterprises, formal or informal, it doesn't matter, then we could have, let's say, a multi-layer economy with circular economy initiatives on a small scale level, and at the same time also at a maybe sector or regional or continental, even global level. Last but not least, on this topic, what we see is that let's say one of the aspects of circular economy is that you should be able to recuperate the sources that you use for a product during the use stage of this product, so to say, so that you're able to recuperate the energy that was needed for sourcing, production, consumption, logistics, whatever. But at the same time, that you also make sure that if you're not able to recuperate all raw materials in a product, that you also make sure that you have your extra, what we call virgin sourcing, also included in this product. Well, and that puts pressure on land use and spatial planning, of course. And so at this very moment in Europe, there is the Circular Economy Action Plan is coming up, and people are still worrying that it doesn't go far enough, let's say, for the agricultural sector, because it still makes not sure that the land use will be circular. And with a growing population all over the globe, and all these, let's say, 10 billion mouths that have to be fed within some decades, that's a real challenge to make sure that also land use will be circular. And there it could directly contribute to combat of poverty. Okay, I'm over my 50 minutes, I see. So I would like to ask you, and that we start with some challenges. And what would be your call to action? I've put some quotes on the in this slide, and I will let it on the screen because we see that this is not a topic that will be dealt with directly. We think we can deal with that, but it can differ from country to country and from region to region. So, will circular economy combat poverty? I would say informal economies are often already circular. Some people say circular economy is a luxury thing. It's a welfare thing. It only works in rich countries. I say a circular economy enforces a better land distribution and land use. Some people say, and sometimes I think that's the case, a circular economy always needs a large scale. I think you can also organize things at a small scale, and think how people organized their sourcing and their production 100 years ago, and it was too expensive to throw stuff away, and you always use it again. And from that perspective, a circular economy could reinstall a local economy, and with that, it could empower a better income distribution. So my question to you, what would be your role or the role of several sectors? And maybe Maya, I could take the word back to you and maybe ask some questions before we go into discussion.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Franz. And I again enjoyed this view that the circular economy, it has been all that historical economy, and that the chain of logistics changed it to something else. And now we have to figure out how to make it circular and how to, in a way, return, but also build new collaborations and possibilities. Thank you so much for your keynote. And now I would like to invite participants to ask questions. If you can raise your hand. And also I inform you that in the poll we have a new question now, so you can also vote there. But maybe someone would like to ask something after this presentation. You can think about it and either write in the chat or just switch on your microphone and ask. Maybe I can ask then meanwhile, Franz. Do you think that this running out of raw material, is this the key driver for circular economy? or do you see that currently there are other drivers and it's not the understanding that we are running out of raw materials?
Yeah, what we see in our countries, and I cannot speak for the total globe, is that at the very moment, climate change is a bigger driver for circular economy than raw material scarcity. And why that is? Maybe because it gets more attention. Maybe we see it in our weather, and that people most of the time, we as people we don't have these very long horizons. And if we say that sodium is running out within 40 to 60 years, well, what would it do to me today? I would say, and if silver is running out, depending on the consumption between now and 20 or 30 years. So in ore, and I don't feel that yet. And so that could be one of the reasons, or just because other people manage to get climate change higher on the agenda. At the same time, of course, and that there's a lot of literature already written in the last 2 to 3 years on this topic. There is a direct connection between climate change and raw material scarcity. And so if you're able to build, for example, circular buildings, then you directly contribute to let's say, I would not say avoidance at least, and then reduction of climate change. So in our dashboards that we make, where we try to put operational and quantitative KPIs to our activities, then we take the carbon emission always in the calculation. Also from a communication point of view, people are, at this one, very much connected to climate change and emissions. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I also think that it's not that easy to tell the story of circular economy. It's always quite complex, and it's not simplistic, the story of circular economy. And I think that this is where we can all grow in telling how and in telling why that matters. My second question, and I'm still waiting from audience some questions in case. My second question is, I've been wondering, and I think this is something we discussed probably too little when we talk about circular economy, which is by all means is much better than linear economy, because it allows us to let the resources circulate. But one of the things which is rarely discussed, but I think we also have to bring it into the discourse, is that there is also limits to circular economy. Is it 4 or 5 kind of loops of circularity, or is it 20 loops? Or is so basically the circular economy is finite as well? And I see we have a question. Thank you, Augustina. Yes, I will give floor to you. Maybe let's have another question, and then Franz, you can answer both. Augustine, yeah. Please just switch on your microphone and ask.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity. I also want to find out that from the presentation, it was clear that historically, circular economy has been with us for well over 100 years. But my question is, why are we finding it very difficult to implement it in the mainstream? Is it that in terms of economic terms, it's not really viable, or why are we not trying to incorporate it into the mainstream of our economic stuff?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question.
Yeah.
And maybe the simple answer would be because we don't feel it hard enough yet. Huh? Let's say in the last 100 years, we started with mass production. And because of the scale of mass production, linear products became very, very, very cheap. And at the very moment that you would like to start or reinstall a new kind of already a known economy, then the scale to start with is small. And that means that you have to compete with cost prices that are let's say very low. Maybe I'm going to give an example. When we started with these safety shoes, and the raw materials were sourced all over the world. We made a exploded view of the shoe, and we did an assessment of all the components in the shoe. What components were suitable for a circular approach, and what components were not, also from a toxic point of view. And when I say toxic, that they are legally allowed at this very moment, but we already know that there are components that are today are legally allowed, but within 10 years they will be forbidden. And why not forbid them today if you already know that we better not use them? And so that meant in this project that we had to change some of the components into another raw material. And then the supplier said, well, that has a cost price consequence because I only do that for you. And then the manufacturer we worked with said, okay, that's fine. I will take this higher cost price of this little component, and the effect of the total price was not that big, because we always say we do not, how you say that? We do not do any concessions to quality in this case to safety, but also not to market price. A circular product has to compete with, let's say, a classic non-circular product. So in this specific case, we said, okay, the manufacturer said, okay, I allow a little bit smaller margin because of the fact that one of my or two of my components are a little bit more expensive at the very moment. At the same time, he said to his supplier, but don't only change this component for me, but change it for the total market. And then we have a higher volume, and the cost price can be lowered again. So that's one. The other one is, well, it's change. And in my this circular model I put in the agenda slide that you saw, one of I also put change management of one of the prerequisites of going into the circular economy. And that's the hardest part for people, to change. And that's not only to do with circular economy, that also has to do with safety. In my country, with COVID-19, and it doesn't matter. The change management is, I think, is in this topic the hardest part to get things done. We did a lot of very difficult projects from a content point of view. We were able to recuperate neodymium from magnets. We were able to recuperate phosphates from manure. Interesting projects, but the most difficult one was to have companies think in another way, think in other business models, and things like that. Does that give an answer to your question, Augustine?
While Augustine is thinking, we still have one more question from Marie Grace. Please go ahead.
Hello. Yes, you can hear me.
I can hear you, yeah.
Hello, everyone. Hi to all the fellow alumni that are here. I see familiar names and classmates here. I would like to ask about local economy in a sense. In the Philippines, maybe Jed and Bonnie could remember this. When we are young, in the Philippines, there are these people who have these carts and going houses to houses and buying bottles, empty bottles from houses. And this man is working in the recycling plants. And they pay us for a couple of pesos in replacement, in exchange to these bottles. So this was, I'm thinking of the 1980s, 1990s now, you know how old I am.
Yeah.
But anyway, in this area. But for example, here in Chile, where I am living now, a circular economy or the recycling is emerging. It's being strengthened by the government, and there are a lot of initiatives by small-scale entrepreneurs doing recycling. But what they do is they ask for the materials. They ask for the empty bottles, and we even pay them to get it from us. but the raw material, and these are, let's say, waste from us, but it's also a material that they will use to create another object. So how do you see this? If this kind of scenarios that before some people pay you to get that material, but nowadays we just give it freely, when in fact one house or household could also make a living with it by giving this waste or raw material that we consider to another one that will benefit on it when they resell it in another form.
Yeah. Yeah, this kind of example you mentioned, I recognize, of course, that it's also over here. Then that I call that a way of passive recycling. Eh? People see there is some value in these raw materials like glass or metals or some plastics and things like that, and they get it for free, or they or even if you want to get rid of it, you even have to pay for it a little bit. Eh? Because the other one has to put some cost in it to purify the material again, to use it again. And this example of these bottles is a very nice example where the milk bottles, let's say 20, 30, 40 years ago, they were collected again, they were cleaned and used for milk again, let's say 5, 6 times, and then went into recycling. And sometimes that's still the case for glass packaging. And glass is a real nice example where recycling really contributes to the raw materials, but also to the energy and emission topics, because the melting point of colors, broken glass, is much more lower than the heat you need for sand and sodium to produce new glass. So I think at this very moment it's not that odd that people, let's say, get it for free or ask money for it, because they have to put a lot of action and cost into to recuperate these raw materials. But it's one of the solutions. Once these products were designed in a circular way, and once the reverse logistics system behind makes sure what we call that this residual value is higher, then maybe you could get a discount on these products once you are able to give them back in a proper way. And so there are some examples of manufacturers that say, okay, I design circular products. For example, the Signify is an example. That's the old Philips lighting. They came up with that they don't sell light armatures and bulbs and things like that, but they sell just light on your office. To be able to do so, they say, okay, but then, dear consumer, then I must be sure that you also treat this product in such a way that I'm able to either give it a next use or dismantle it or get the proper raw materials out of it. And we have examples where we said, okay, well, if you're able to design a circular product, if you have a circular system behind that makes sure that the quality and purity of the product is secured, then the next use value of the raw materials, of the secondary raw materials, the recuperated raw materials, as we call it, was twice as high as let's say the classical recycled materials, where you have a lot of waste after the recycling part. And maybe that also connects to this question of Maya on are we able to organize endless loops? Well, that's more or less what you asked. Well, one of the standard answers in circular economy is always, it depends. it depends. That's not, that's
yes,
not,
that is always the best answer in our economics course. It is the only right answer. It depends, indeed.
Depends.
Thank you.
And it differs a little bit from let's say raw material group to raw material group. We must make a distinction between 4 raw material groups that are the plastics, the metals, the minerals, and the biogenic products. And let's go into these biogenic products. Like paper in its pure form is a biogenic product. Right? It's made from biomass. But what we do, and we say, okay, I have organic cotton. Well, then maybe the yarn, the original yarn was organic, but what has been done afterwards in dyeing and in finishing, that ruins the total product and makes it really difficult to get this cotton either in recuperation to make a new yarn out of it, or at the end when the yarn is too short to make a new spin a new product, that you're able to use it as a nutrient for topsoil, because in the end that should be the case. And the same is with paper. We are able to recycle paper five or six times, and then the fiber is too short to recycle again. If this paper is pure, if the inks are okay, if the finishing, the fillers, and the glue from labels and things like that, if these are okay, also comply to circular requirements, then it would be easy to mix these paper fibers into the soil again, like we did 40 years ago, 50 years ago. Yeah, and then the balance of what you need on virgin input, you should make sure as a manufacturer that you have your sources in place. Let's say if you're able to recuperate paper, but you know on your total volume in the course of the years that you have to add 20 to 25% of virgin raw materials, then you should be able to also have an agricultural source where you know that these sources are secured without, let's say, bringing food production in danger. Yeah. The same counts for I could say the same for plastics. Also for plastics, we know that they at the level of technology today, they degenerate a little bit every loop you make. So on one hand, we say, okay, the chemical industry is able to reduce this degeneration. At the same time, we say, make sure that you have new sources and better biological sources to add to this volume that you need.
Thank you. Such a good answer, and lots of things to think about. We have one more question from Augustine. Augustine, you're welcome to ask.
Yeah, thank you.
Go on, Augustine, go on.
Okay. Thank you, Franz. I think I will agree with you in the part when you said, which is the informal economy are most often secular. But then the part I will want to find out is how do we measure the implications, for instance, as urban planners? Most often it's difficult to measure the impacts of the people within the informal economic sector because one, their activities are not mostly regulated. So for instance, I'm from Ghana, and then in Accra, we have electronics recycling space. I think for some time now, the GIZ and other agencies are trying to work with them. The problem is that for all the electronics and all the gadgets that go into this place for recycling, their contribution to pollution and to environmental degradation and all that is really difficult for you to measure, because if you want to look at how it provides jobs and everything and how everything is linked to the other sectors, but then if you want to measure the impact that it's having on pollution and global warming and all those things, then it becomes difficult for you to weigh the two. So what I want to find out is how do we stimulate the interest of these people in the informal sector for them to understand the implications of their activities and how the entire circular economy thing can fuse together to produce the kind of output that we want. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very interesting and also a very challenging topic. I was involved in this topic of electronics that was sent to Ghana about 12 years ago, where, let's say, European manufacturers put products on the market, and that we saw that these products after usage came back either on the market in Accra, where components, spare parts were sold, and very, very well selected, very well ordered and things like that. At the same time, we saw that on some landfill sites in Ghana, people were burning the cables to get the precious metals out of it. Well, and that of course has nothing to do with circularity, but at the same time, it's a kind of, it's a first step into circularity. And how can you, and the challenge is, how can we make sure that on one hand, this recuperation of, let's say in this case, components, spare parts, and raw materials takes place, and that it will get an economy of itself. And I agree, in this case, it's an informal economy. And at the same time, make sure that the people that are working in this are being stimulated and supported, that they do in such a way that that on one hand, that no toxic material is pumped around, is being pumped around, to say, and at the same time that also, let's say, they have also some continuity and in the economic benefits of that. I think that's a difficult topic. That's a topic where the original manufacturers should take their responsibility. It's a topic where, let's say, countries should take their responsibility. I know there are some initiatives where European countries are working together, amongst others, with Ghana, to see if we could set up some basic infrastructure. And that's let's say that's in the pre-circular stage, where we're still in the stage of from waste to resource, and where products are not circular design, but they are ending in a landfill, with what we all do not want to happen. But how can we make sure that there are regional infrastructures, that these products that come onto the market, we cannot avoid that electronics that get into the market, and also used electronics get into the market, that to make sure that these components and raw materials are recuperated in such a way that there are economic benefits, and there is no environmental pollution. And I think that's a cooperation between the original manufacturers that should take that responsibility, and they do it more and more, also driven by law. It's a national responsibility of, let's say, national governments that should say, okay, we set up an infrastructure to make sure that these products are being treated in a proper way. And in the end, also, it's an individual responsibility that the local entrepreneurs that are dealing with these kind of products also should make sure that the raw materials are recuperated, but there are no toxic effects. At the same time, they should be rewarded for the fact that they make sure that these products don't end in the landfill. And this reward, I would say, should come from the original manufacturer, because it's more or less of the kind of schemes we have in Europe. When you put an electronic device on the market in Europe, the manufacturer is responsible for the end of use stage. He or she has to organize an end of use solution. And so in this case, that's the recycling solution. About 98% of all these devices are being recycled, and then still not circular. So the result could even be higher. And why not transpose this kind of systems, in this case to Ghana, and see how it could work in Ghana, and that it also empowers, let's say, local economy, local entrepreneurs, and things like that.
Thank you, and I'm really amazed listening to this, because this is hands-on in a way experience. It's not just theorizing about circular economy, but very concrete, specific questions that should be solved. And thank you so much, Frans, for really brilliant answers. But I think now it's time for us, all our participants, to a little bit talk and discuss. So what will happen now? Now you will be randomly divided into 4 groups, where you will discuss the following topics. What is the role of governments for circular economy? What is the role of business communities in circular economy? What is the role of local and regional communities? And the role of education and science. And you will be given 10 minutes for discussions in a smaller group of 3 or 4 people. And after 10 minutes, we will be waiting for you back and we will want to hear your thoughts. This will be the outcome of this workshop. So what is the role and how could circular economy be strengthened through these different governance structures? So good luck and we meet in 10 minutes.
Yeah, everyone will be automatically impose a topic. So let's do
Yes.
it. See you later.
I just wanted to share with you that 4 breakout sessions, 3 of them are working quite well. In the first one, the role of government, not the role of government, but the other one, the business communities, did not have enough participants because 2 or 3 decided not to join this breakout room. So I moved them to other breakout rooms. So the discussion is going on. And they will close automatically when 10 minutes are over.
Okay, good. Then, yeah, fine. We are then waiting 1 minute or so for people to come back, right?
That's correct.
And I think everyone is already here. We are 17, the whole group.
Or like this, we decide to go back. Discussion is finished. I think everybody is now back in the main session.
Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone back. And since you have been working now for 10 minutes, I will give floor to each of the group to present your discussions. Just I wanted to quickly show, we had these questions in the beginning, and before we start your presentations, maybe I can, I will then show it later. Let's start with your presentations. So how about the group who was discussing the role of government? Could one or all of you present your insights? Is there some issue with microphones because we are not getting anyone from this group? Maybe one representative can sum up what did you discuss?
Luis, Fernanda, or Alombe? Or we can pass to the second group and then we come back. I don't know if they're summarizing. Okay, so as I understand, the role of business communities was a too small group. So we are going then to the next one, the role of local and regional communities. Are you ready to present?
Yes, Maiha, this is Jed from the Philippines. And joining me in the breakout room was Geeta and Mustafa. First of all, I think given that key question on the role of local and regional communities, we carefully need to look into how we organize our communities, given directives of national or federal governments on promoting or implementing a circular economy. For instance, as Mustafa pointed out in our discussion, as we organize local communities, we put into context the education of our communities, looking into policies that are in place so that they can conform. On the other hand, as we were proceeding with our discussion, Geeta mentioned that as we promote a circular economy, we also need to look into the context of managing consumption. Particularly, how do we reduce consumption for specific products? And as I was about to share my context, we ran out of time, so I'll just synthesize it with a background, looking into the Philippine experience. For instance, if you look into recycling waste, I know it's been very successful in Europe and many parts of the globe, but simple plastic reduction, sometimes I can't say that we have been very successful in the Philippines, although there is a value chain, like when you recycle plastic products or solid waste, but since communities, especially in the context of the Philippines, that our communities are separated by land and islands, it is so difficult to enforce policies on proper solid waste management, which includes recycling. And in our context as well, you would be amazed that many local government units already enacted local legislations that bans the use of plastic when you go to grocery and promote the use of eco bags. But the impact is very minimal because most of the products they buy are contained in plastic containers, no? And the end product is how do you put all of these used products later on into that circular economy that would return to the value chain. So I think it's not just about having a backbone in terms of a national or federal regulation, but how do you trickle down this the implementation of such to really engage the entire community, no? And seeing the value of their contribution to that circular economy wherein they also gain. No? Like if you recycle products, there are other byproducts that you can produce. No? So I think that would feed into the concept of the circular economy. So thank you.
Thank you very much for such a great presentation. And I really like that you mentioned that we need to look into the context of managing consumption. So not just thinking this one-way road of keeping consuming and making it circular, which is a very important step, but also really challenging the consumption aspects. What do we need to consume and how and when and why? So this is very, very nice insight. Thank you so much, and also for adding your Philippines perspective. Let's turn now to the group which was discussing the role of education and science.
Max, would you speak? Otherwise, I can do it.
Yeah, I can do it.
Now, go on, Max.
Hello, everybody. I am Max from Guatemala. As Ricardo said, we discussed the role of education and science. And I think that we had three main points. The first one is that we think that it is important to educate everybody on all the implications of consumption, because very often we are not aware of everything that needs to be done in order to create the products that we are purchasing. So we think that something in the curricula, for example, could be improved so that we are more aware of it, as well as of learning about how to recycle and all these other processes that are somehow already being implemented in some contexts. The second point that we discussed is that we also think that we have to improve the access to knowledge in general, because otherwise we are just creating a monopoly of knowledge where just a few people are aware of many ideas or things that could be improved in order to create better ways of production and consumption. We were discussing, for example, how nowadays it's very difficult to find someone who can fix appliances or something. Then it turns out to be impossible. And then we need to replace the appliance completely instead of fixing it as it would have been done when we were kids, for example. And this leads us to our third and final point, which was that we also think that it's important to value again traditional knowledge, like the production of handicrafts and different goods that were produced locally before, so that we can find a way in which societies and communities can rely on them again, because it will not also help to create jobs and improve the local economy, but also it would help in the sense that then products could be fixed because people would have the knowledge on how to improve them, and would also be a way to put in value our cultures and our heritage. So yeah, I think that those were the 3 points that we discussed. Please, Mary Grace and Ricardo, if I forgot something.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Thank you. It was very clear and very well presented. And I really like how in this discussion we are going really in depth of circularity and this point of that you have to see the context of fixing. And this could enable the local kind of economies and knowledge. This is something amazing because it's just like recently that there is these rules, at least in Europe, that appliances must be fixable in a way, yeah, that it's not okay to just throw out, you must be able to fix. And then exactly if that's at the global scale, then fixing or ability to fix and improve could actually shift these supply chains. A wonderful point. Thank you so much. Is the third group ready? The one which had 2 topics or 1 topic, and are you ready to present your insights?
Excuse me, which group is it?
The group which discussed the role of governments or the role of business communities.
Ah, yeah, it's our group.
Your group, okay, thank you. So welcome.
Hello, my name is Jailan and I'm from Egypt. We talked with Bruni about the role of the government in circular economies. Actually, it was so short because we had some problems, logistical problems. So what we talked about is that government should make policies in order to give incentives to individuals on circular economy and on the recycling process, because what we talked about is nowadays, and from the discussion that Mary Grace had mentioned in her question, that nowadays when people come to recycling, they actually need to invest as individuals or even invest time and money, and sometimes they need to have an educational background on that. And so from the policies of the government, at least they can give some incentives on a way how to recycle, and even sometimes economical incentives, like what's going on in Europe, but at least give it in our developing countries a sense that people would gain from recycling. And this can be a way of getting into the circular economy as individuals, but also from the role of the government, they can also invest in somehow the recycling process in a way that power plants, they can make somehow power plants, or if someone wants to recycle things, because sometimes even industries would be interested to recycle, but the infrastructure does not give them a way somehow to do it, and they would invest so much money in order to recycle things, and that's why they just skip that point. And from that way, sometimes government can somehow invest in power plants or infrastructure in order to, and it's kind of an incentive as well.
Thank you again. A very holistic approach, and beautifully to see that you have been also thinking about this industrial symbiosis, exactly how the industry could collaborate from each other's side streams. Thank you so much. Thank you all the groups. And I know we are running out of time, but there was still one very interesting point that Franz wanted to share with you. So, Franz, you have 2 minutes. And you could elaborate on the topic of connecting local initiatives and informal economies to circular economy. And after that, then we can finalize the session.
Yeah. And it's really nice we came up of the working groups. I was also thinking about the question of Augustine on how to connect formal economy to the circular economy. And in the working groups, some of the answers were already given, and amongst others on these incentives and this collaboration. Indeed, I agree that for some solutions you need a pre-investment, let's say a government or a business community in combination of a pre-investment to install some basic infrastructure. I have a little one on managing consumption. Indeed, you shouldn't spoil or spill things. At the same time, there was a guy, maybe you already heard of, but maybe some of the German participants here heard of him, Professor Michael Braungart, who developed the concept of cradle to cradle. And he always said, I worked with him for 7 years, and he always said, save the environment, drive a Ferrari. Saying, but as long as you're able to recuperate raw materials, and as long as you're using a renewable energy and you have a water recuperation system behind and things like that, I know it sounds a bit utopical, but in the end, that should be the case. At the same time, we shouldn't spill things and things like that. But I was thinking again on this connection of local and informal economies to the circular economy. And I think, well, when we look at the classic economies, we have fine meshed distribution systems to get products into the places. When we're looking into reverse logistics, we don't have these fine meshed systems in place because people are not incentivized to make sure that they save their products, that there is a local entrepreneur that collects these products, and that we have a regional initiative to do some pre-treatment on products or do first separation of products that are meant for, let's say, recycling route A and recycling route B. As you can imagine, the way of infrastructure has been developed for distributing new products, that the same kind of infrastructure could be installed for recollecting all these kind of products. And that's another way of collection than waste management than waste collection. I've worked in the waste sector for a long time, waste management sector for a long time. And people that are thinking in terms of waste, they're not thinking in terms of products. So indeed, if a manufacturer has an interest to get his or her own raw materials back, then there is an incentive to local economies to make sure that these bottles of electronic products or shoes or whatever is collected at a local scale. That pre-treatment will take place, let's say, at a regional scale. And if there are products that need recycling at a mass scale because of investment, then at least you have this how I call it, it's not cascading, but this growing of, let's say, on one hand, local collection, local or regional pre-sorting or pre-treatment of products, and then bringing volumes to specialized facilities that need a shared facility, a shared investment, and things like that. So there is really a role with an economic feasible role for local initiatives in the circular economy. Did I forget something on the feedback from the groups? I think that's enough for now, also considering the time.
Yeah, I just wanted to share, this is what our participants associated with circular economy, and this just shows what a unique group we had. And indeed, this is more like call for action and how the circular economy can be implemented. And there is not much waste kind of type of thinking. So indeed, waste is value or can be value. It can be a resource. Resource is a different name of the waste. And we have to talk how we can reuse, how we can cooperate efficiently to make the recycling possible and to reach sustainability. So with this, I would like to thank the organizers, the participants. I think all of us feel we could discuss 3 more hours, and indeed it's very, very interesting. And thank you, Franz, for your in-depth knowledge of the materials and of the cycles and everything, and also the governance structure. And I'm also very happy to see that globally it's such a topic which really resonates. So it's wonderful to know this community, and all the examples and the discussion groups were very relevant, and I wrote down some of the points taken. So I think that for this group, we can conclude that we looked at the circular economy not from a shallow perspective, but we looked from in-depth perspective. So not just the circularity of the resource flow, but the circular economy and our impact on economy and economy's impact on us in terms of consumption, in terms of repairing and fixing things, and in terms of industrial potential to collaborate. So with this, I would like to thank you. Thank you, Franz. I know it's very difficult to clap in Zoom, but let's say thank you. And I give floor to you, Ricardo, to finalize with this workshop. Thank
you, Maya. Thank you, Franz. It was really, really nice, the discussion. We could see how broad and how important is the topic. Like we talk about technical issues, political issues, economical issues, everything is encompassed, and we could do in a very short period of time, but that's the idea, is just to bring the discussion, amplify the discussion worldwide, and this is our goal as the alumni network. I want to thank everyone that participated. I want to thank the organization team, and invite everyone to be together for the closing session tomorrow at the same time. So please join. We all have the link. And I want also to ask all of you to open the camera, just we can make like the group picture, the final group picture. We have to work with what we have, right? It's always a challenge to work like this. Everything is new for us, but that's how the things work. Like that's the new or the strange normality that we're living. So if we could open the cameras and I do the print screen. So bye and thank you all. Smile.